Hello everybody and welcome to Unit 13. Here we're going to cover coastal geology. So this is sort of wrapping up our discussion of how water shapes the surface of the earth, all the different active roles that it plays and has played in doing that. So first, talk about the oceans. Uh, about 70% of the earth is covered by oceans. Take a moment, see if you can actually name the 5 biggest oceans. Don't have to be in order from largest to smallest, just name 5. I'll give you a minute. So, largest, Pacific, then Atlantic, then the Indian, then the Southern Ocean. This is kind of new, so if you didn't know that, do not be worried. Kind of a new thing. Finally, the Arctic Ocean is the smallest. Average depth of the oceans is about 12,000 feet, about 4 kilometers. There's parts that are much deeper, parts that are much shallower. On average, pretty deep though. Average continent elevation, actually a little higher than you might think. It's about 2,700 feet. And you have places like Mount Everest, they're up about 30,000-ish. Places like Death Valley that are actually negative 100-ish. But overall, it's at about 2,700. So what does this actually look like? The point I'm trying to give you with all this, it's a lot of ocean. The Earth, obviously, we all think of the land parts because that's the part that we're on. But the norm is the ocean. That's what most of the Earth is. Coastlines are the places where land and ocean interact. I knew that, but there is a lot of coastline, 372,000 miles worldwide. To put this in perspective, the distance to the moon is a little less than this. Well, actually, a lot less than this. It's 1.5 times more coastline than there is distance to the moon. The point here is a lot of coastlines. About 40% of the global population lives in somewhere that's close to the coast, about 60 miles above the coast. A lot of people. Most countries have some kind of oceanic coastline. If you look at this map here, you can actually see the white countries here are the ones which don't have any sort of coastline. There's really not that many. And before we go on to the next slide, think which of these countries would you expect to have the greatest amount of coastline, the most of it? And if any of you have, heard of this problem anywhere else, measuring the coastline problem, it depends what kind of measuring stick you use. We're not taking that into consideration here, just plain and simple, which one has the most. So the answer is Canada. Canada has the most by far, much more than any other individual country, followed by Norway, Indonesia, then Greenland, Russia. Uh, this map is a little misleading for, say, Greenland and Russia. Everything that's far from the equator, whenever you project a spherical Earth out onto a map like this, it's going to get stretched out. Russia is big, but it's not that big. Canada has all these little bitty islands that put it in first. Philippines, island country. Japan, island countries. A lot of island countries on the list here. Australia, US, and then Antarctica. So what about the US specifically? We have about 12,000 miles of coastline. This is about half as far as it is to get all the way around the Earth. The circumference, about 25,000 miles, good number to remember. Again, 40% of the US population, about 127 million people, almost half live in places that are near the coasts. Almost half of the states have oceanic coastlines, but if you include the Great Lakes regions, this gets to be closer to like 60%, most of them. You can actually see here. So dark blue means ocean, light blue means that it has some sort of coastline that is freshwater lakes, in this case, Great Lakes. And a fun fact, New York is the only state which has both sorts of coastline, Great Lake and ocean. So which one has the most? It is Alaska. This map here doesn't really do the size of Alaska justice. It has been shrunk down very, very small. I'm sure many of you know Alaska is the largest U.S. state. Plus, this is all coastline here, pretty much all coastline. So Alaska is the first by a huge amount. Then Florida, California is a long state. Got island country, Hawaii, place like Louisiana, a lot of coastline. Then a little bit less, Texas, North Carolina, Oregon, Maine, and Massachusetts. Next section, we're going to talk about plate tectonics. So this is sort of our introduction to the ocean, where there are coastlines, how much ocean and coastline there is. There's a lot. Next section, we're going to talk about how plate tectonics has a relationship to the opening of what we call the ocean basins, the big old things that hold all the water in the oceans, and how plate tectonics has sort of shaped the history of the oceans over geologic time. See that?